Hey everyone, welcome back to the workshop. Artisan Pirate here, and in today's fun scroll saw project video, we're going to be doing some more compound cutting from an older issue of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing. The magazine in question is Spring 2019, issue 74. You can see it has the nice dragon puzzle there on the cover, so really cool. The article that we are going to be doing and patterns begin on page 36, and here you see the article in question. It says, Hardwood Chess Set. Nested designs provide a new twist on the classic strategy game by Mr. Clayton Myers. So thank you, Clayton, for the patterns featured in the magazine that we are going to be doing. And there you see a visual representation of the classic chess pieces. So it has a really cool artistic vibe going on here. You have the compound cut chess pieces themselves. You can see you have the king, the queen, the pawn, the knight, pieces like that. But within the bigger design, you have a smaller miniature design nested within it. So a really versatile design to show off what a scroll saw is capable of. Again, very versatile tools to use in a garage or workshop. The following page has an article on how to cut the project out from start to finish, as well as some tips, tricks, and tidbits. And then the page after that is the full-size patterns. And then you have more of the patterns on the following page. They are all to full size, so you don't have to enlarge or shrink them down or anything like that. We're going to be doing the king piece in today's video. Now, I have friends out in the scroll saw community on the social media groups that have posted that they have made the entire chess set featured here, and I know that would just be one long scrolling session, and I'm sure by the end of it you would be a master of the compound cutting technique over at the scroll saw. I've already got the patterns photocopied to their full size, and I've got our material ready. And for the material, you're going to need a 1 1/2 inch block of material to make it. So here we have, this is pine material. You guys know I love using pine to teach with visually over here on the platform because it cuts, sands, shapes, contours exceptionally well, and it's just a great tool to teach with visually, I hope. So here we have our blank, we have our full-size pattern. Now, back when the magazine came out in 2019, I actually cut out the king piece that we're going to be making again in today's video, and here we see the offcut of it. I kind of keep the piece nested within the waste wood to kind of protect it to where it won't be knocked around or broken or anything. But this was just a scrap piece of construction grade 2x4 or 2x6 I had laying around. I milled it down over on the table saw, and then I went to work over on the scroll saw after attaching the pattern. And here you see the results of that. Again, just basic construction grade lumber. Used some scraps, and it made this beautiful visual piece that is the king chess piece. It has the miniature crown there on the top with the cross on it. Then you have the nested piece down within the base. Hopefully the one we make in today's video will come out a little bit better. The little pattern that I'm going to show you has the cross at the top of the bigger piece as well as at the bottom here, but you can see that because this is just basic construction grade lumber, it broke off. But here in the pattern that we're going to be using, you can see that it does indeed have a little cross on it. Because we're going to be cutting out 1.5 inch thick material, we need to, of course, take our time and let the blade do the work. And I hope it goes without saying that when you're going to be doing compound cutting over at the scroll saw, you need to make sure that the table saw where you mill down your material as well as your scroll saw is dialed in at a perfect 90 degrees. So before I even begin scrolling, I will double check everything with my 3D printed blade alignment jig here. And since all that's left to do is get the pattern trimmed out and get the pattern attached, to get started, let's move the camera and do that now. And over here on the workbench, we're going to take our straight edge and an X-Acto knife and trim out the pattern, and then I'll fold it sharply and crisply along the dotted line, and then we will attach the pattern to our material with clear packing tape. Clear packing tape is all I'll use to attach the pattern to the material here, and the oils in the clear packing tape can help lubricate the scroll saw blade and reduce burn marks when cutting through harder or thicker material. Over here on the drill press, I'm taking a larger than normal drill bit to drill out our pilot holes. You do not want that drill bit to drift within the material. It could potentially mess up the effect of the compound cut we are trying to achieve. And over here at the scroll saw, before we start, I'm going to double check to make sure my blade is nice and at a perfect 90 with our 3D printed blade alignment jig. But then it will be time to start scrolling. And for all of the scrolling on this project, even though we are cutting through a thicker piece of material, I'm still going to be using a number 5 Ultra reverse tooth blade, and it will cut through the material exceptionally well with minimal chip out. Keep in mind it is pine material, but again, due to the thickness of the material, it is a very, very slow cut. I just have on some good music. I have a good grip on the workpiece I'm holding, and I am taking my time and letting the blade do the work. The most tedious cut here is cutting out the little miniature chest piece that is the nested feature that this project has going with it. But again, just taking my time here and guiding the blade along the cut line. I think a number 5 blade would be the appropriate size to use here. If you went any thicker with the blade size, you might not be able to make some of those small turns that make up the miniature nature of the little mini nested chest piece that I am now cutting out. But I am already almost done with one side of the compound cut chest piece, and now we can flip it over and begin the other side. And I will go to a closer view here to hopefully give you guys the best view possible during the scrolling process. And please be aware that once you start flipping the piece over after removing some of the waste wood, the feed rate in which you feed into the blade is going to change drastically. That's why I always tell people to keep a firm grip on a compound cut piece during the whole scrolling process. I am now releasing the one side of the compound cut chest piece here, and that's just simply following that long outside cut line. And the feed rate does change when I get to those voids that we have already cut out on the other side. So again, just slowly guiding the blade along the cut line. And for some reason here, when I get to the base here, the blade breaks, and it's been a while since I've broken a scroll saw blade, but I put a new one in and I threaded it back through to the best of my abilities, and we quickly finished this side of the compound cut. And once it was done, we stepped over to the workbench, and this is a totally optional step, but I like to slide the piece out and clean it up to the best of my abilities to remove as much of that excess sawdust as possible before wrapping it back up with the clear packing tape. I just feel that this helps reduce burn marks because all of that excess sawdust could of course catch and produce friction marks on the piece. But now we are cutting out the other side, and this will complete all of the compound cutting. If you guys would like to try this pattern, it's available in an older issue of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing. And if you guys like what you're seeing, I would highly encourage you to subscribe to my channel and also follow me across all my social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. I'd really appreciate the support. But now that all of the scroll saw work is done, we can carefully remove the piece. And it is a fragile compound cut, so I'm being very careful with it. But not all of the work is done on the piece. We're going to have to remove the 4 little shadows, as they are called in the magazine. And I've gotten out my Marathon rotary tool by Bearwood Supply with a little cutoff wheel here, and I'm slowly cutting those off to complete the nested chest appearance of the piece. Just being very careful here, and then I'll switch to a little drum sander here to clean up where we cut off all 4 of those sides. Being as careful as possible. But once that is done, I'll do some touch-up sanding with one of the little sanding sticks that subscribers have sent me, making the piece as nice and clean as possible. But then I added a splash of color with a very light shade of Minwax wood stain that still allowed the natural grains and textures of the pine material to shine through. And I wiped off all of the excess carefully here with some paper towels, and I hung it on a hook to dry. And once it was dry to the touch, it was time to apply a finish. And for a finish, I used several coats of Rust-Oleum clear gloss. I hung it outside in the morning breeze to let it dry, and once it was completely dry, the project was complete. And here we have the completed nesting compound cut chess piece King Edition, cut out completely over on the scroll saw. Once again showing off a scroll saw's unique versatility for creative designs such as this, and it finished up beautifully with some immaculate and delicate details in it. Thank you once again to Mr. Clayton Myers for the beautiful design featured in an older issue of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing. I'll hold that magazine up toward the end of the video once again for you guys to see it, but really beautiful and unique design, taking projects like this into the third dimension, showing off a scroll saw's versatility. Not only can they cut out flat two-dimensional designs that they are traditionally known for, they can take it into the third dimension with beautiful, unique, and amazing compound cuts such as this. It took me around 35 minutes to scroll everything out completely from start to finish. It is a very slow cut over at the scroll saw as opposed to cutting out flat two-dimensional material like 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch material. Keep in mind, we cut out a solid 1.5 inch thick piece of material over at the scroll saw. So you, of course, as I said, have to take your time and let the blade do the work and be as loyal as I can be to the cut line when I am over at the scroll saw. And I hope the results speak for themselves, but with cutting out this much thickness over at the scroll saw, you want to go very, very slow because you do not want the scroll saw blade to warp or bend within the material, because then when you get done with your compound cut, you would not be able to slide it apart smoothly as I did in today's video. And I hope a video like this inspires you guys to go out in your garage or workshops and try a unique compound cut design such as this. Hopefully along the course of the video from start to finish, you guys picked up a tip, trick, or tidbit when it comes to compound cutting over at the scroll saw. Just always double check and make sure your table saw and scroll saw is dialed in at a perfect 90 degrees before attempting a project like this. And again, go nice and slow over at the scroll saw and you should do well. But really beautiful and unique design here. I'm very happy with it. It's visually pleasing to the eye the way you look at it. You can see that it is a king piece for the game of chess, the game of champions, but then if you look closer, you see the little nesting chess piece there in the little cage bracket down there at the bottom. So a really beautiful and very fragile design. Please do not pick this design up with kind of force. Be very delicate with it. You wouldn't want to break any of the delicate designs here. But once you get done with the compound cutting process over at the scroll saw, not all of the woodwork is done, because as it says in the magazine, once you get done and slide everything apart, you have to cut off the shadow of the little miniature nesting chess piece on all four sides here, and that is what I done. There is one of them, and I do not have any kind of fancy carving knives out in the workshop, so I took my Marathon rotary tool by Bearwood Supply with a little cutoff wheel, and I carefully cut off all four sides as you've seen in the time-lapse portion of the video. And then I went in with a little miniature sanding drum and carefully sanded away the marks from where I cut them off. And I was very careful with that because that is only like a little inch gap there that you have to get in and sand everything. But after that, it was ready for a little bit more shaping with the little sanding sticks that I like to use that subscribers have sent me in the past. And then it was time to stain it. I opted to add a splash of color with a very light shade of Minwax wood stain to still allow the natural grains and textures of the material, the pine material we used here in today's video, to shine through. And after that dried, we gave it several coats of Rust-Oleum clear gloss to give it protection for years to come and give it a nice glossy sheen that you can see there in the lights of the shop. Once again, when that magazine originally came out in 2019, I made one of these, and this was just rough cut dimensional lumber that I had laying around, a scrap piece, and it was a 2x4 or 2x6, and I milled it down to the proper dimensions. And this is the one we made back in 2019, and this is the one we made in today's video, and you can see the difference in them. The one we made today looks a lot more elegant and robust and just more beautiful in my opinion, because, you know, I was still getting a good foothold on compound cutting with this here, because it was very tedious to cut out as opposed to the compound cut keychains that I am known for. And you know, because I was using just rough cut dimensional lumber, the little crown on top of the little miniature nest and king piece broke off. The one in today's video made it through the whole scrolling journey. It's not perfect, but I'm happy that it is there. And then you of course have the one at the top of it. You can see the one I originally made here is not as proportional as it needs to be, as opposed to the one we made here today. So here's the one from 2019, and here's the one from 2025. Always trying to learn, inspire, and elevate my skills out in the workshop to continually and hopefully teach you guys unique and versatile scroll saw woodworking designs, such as this one here. And again, this is just the king piece. The whole chess set is featured. All of the pieces are in the magazine, the patterns for them. So if you want to go above and beyond and cut out all of the pieces, of course you could do that and give it as a gift to someone who might like to play chess. If you have a nice library, you could make it a nice show-stopping display piece, because if I seen the whole chess set up, you know, I'd come by and I'd be like, wow, I'd have to take some photos and video of it. And I have friends out in the scroll saw community on the social media groups that have cut out all of them. And again, it's a show-stopping piece once it is complete and set up. And if I came across it, I don't even know if I would want to play a game of chess, just due to the delicate nature of the pieces. But if you cut out all of the pieces that make up the game of chess, you would of course be a master of the compound cutting process over at the scroll saw. But if you felt too overwhelmed to cut out all of the individual pieces, a different way to interpret the design, you could cut out just individual pieces and use them as chess trophies. Once again, talking about a pattern's versatility, you could cut out a king, a queen, a pawn, a rook, a knight, and use them for like first, second, third, fourth, runner-up, trophies like that. You could add a nice little base and a nameplate to them. So just another option if you want to go that route. And if you know a family friend or loved one that just likes chess in general, you could of course just cut out the pieces to give to them, to have for them to display on a shelf, desk, or countertop. But again, as the magazine suggested at the beginning, you are supposed to cut this out of hardwoods. That is what the name of the chess set is, hardwood chess set in the magazine that I'll show you here in a moment. And keep in mind, I cut this out of basic readily available pine, but if you cut it out of harder or denser materials, it would be that much more of a slower cut over at the scroll saw. Because I used pine, it only took me around 30 to 35 minutes to scroll it out completely. But if you used harder materials like walnut, mahogany, oak, maple, cherry, things like that, it would be that much more slower of a cut over at the scroll saw. And I hope that makes sense what I am talking about. But the one we made in today's video out of pine came to life beautifully, and hopefully visually it inspires you guys to go out and try a project or pattern like this for compound cutting out in your garage or workshop. Once again, the pattern that we did today came from the Spring 2019 issue 74 of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing. You see the nice little dragon puzzle there on the cover, and the article where the pattern is begins on page 36, and there you see it does indeed say Hardwood Chess Set by Mr. Clayton Myers, and there you see a visual representation of the patterns that are featured on the following page in full size. And you do have a nice little article there explaining about cutting away that shadow side of the little four sides of the mini piece that's nested within the cage, and then you have the full-size pattern on the following couple of pages. But really, really cool. One more look at it before we close the video. I hope along the way from start to finish today you guys picked up a tip, trick, or tidbit when it comes to compound cutting over at the scroll saw. Once again, compound cuts are very versatile ways to show off what a scroll saw is capable of out in a garage or workshop. That's about all for this one. If you're new to the channel, hopefully you'll click that subscribe button and also follow me across all my social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. As always, links to contact me as well as all my social media feeds will always be linked down in the description box below these videos. That's about all for this one, and remember guys, if I can make it or do it, so can you guys. I'm the Artisan Pirate. Take care, and I'll see you guys real soon.